On today's episode of Locked On Mariners, Bryce Miller fights some shaky command to keep the Marlins at bay. Eugenio Suarez continues to heat up. And what would it cost for the Mariners to land Eduardo Rodriguez? All that and more coming up. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. This is Trident Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. And on this episode, we'll be talking about Bryce Miller's outing in last night's 8-1 blowout win over the Marlins. We'll also talk about Eugenio Suarez, Ty France, and this Mariners offense. And we'll wrap things up with a look at Tigers pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez, see if he could be an option for Seattle later this summer. But before we dive into Miller, Colby, we actually have a little bit of news, some minor league news, that is. Michael Arroyo, one of the Mariners' top international signings over the last couple of years, one of their, I would say, top 10 prospects, pretty solid. Infield prospect, of course, 18 years old. Played 4 games in the Complex League to start his season, and now he's getting the call up to Low A Modesto. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because, as you mentioned, he's just 18 years old, and he only played 4 games in the Complex League before getting the call up. I think there's some thought that this is pretty aggressive, but I mean, Arroyo's been doing work down in extended spring training. The guy is just a hitting machine. I haven't, read a scouting report that doesn't think this guy's at least an average bat at the big league level. I've seen a lot of Juan Uribe type of comps thrown on him. But this guy, he can hit, and he's 18 years old. He's probably ultimately going to be moved to third or second. Probably not a shortstop long term, but he's okay there for now. And there's really no reason to move him off of that spot quite yet. So at least for the time being, it looks like we might get an Arroyo Cole Young double play tandem in Modesto. We'll see. I think Young's probably going to move up to Everett here before too long. But for now, it's arguably the 2 best pure bats in the Mariners' entire system are both playing for Modesto. So that's a lot of fun. And Arroyo's a guy, he can hit. I think he's maybe the Mariners prospect that Mariner fans don't know enough about. He's underrated in Mariner fan circles. And it, why, because he's 18 years old and he's 3-4 years away from the big leagues, but kid can really hit. And there's a non-zero chance that he's fast tracked, because the hit tool is a legit 60 grade hit tool. Mm-hmm. And the power is just kind of, we'll wait and see if it's third base power or second base power, but the kid, it's a good player. And this is exciting news. It's fun news. And I think, Arroyo might be one of those guys that, gets dealt and carries a lot more weight in a trade than Mariner fans think he might. But for now, he's fringe top 10 because he hasn't really done it in the States. He's somewhere in that 8 to 12 range, I think, in most people's ranks. By the end of the year, if he's still here, he's probably top 5. The kid can flat out rake. So I'm excited to see what he can do, in low A.
Yeah, phenomenal hit tool, like you mentioned. 199 plate appearances last year in the DSL, 314, 457, 484 with 4 home runs, 22 ribs, 4 stolen bases, struck out 16.6% of the time, walked 13.6% of the time. And then this year in the 4 games that he played in the Complex League, we don't have extended spring training numbers, obviously, but he went 7 for 11 in his 4 games at the in the Complex League. So looking forward to seeing what Arroyo does in affiliated ball, starting pretty quick here. All right, so Bryce Miller last night. Wow, I really took myself off of Baseball Savant to look at Michael Arroyo's numbers. Look at me, not planning out ahead. But Bryce Miller he was able to get back on track last night. I think we can at least say that. It certainly wasn't a great start. The box score to me is a little bit skewed. He only gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run, which was the home run to Nick Fortes. But he walked 3. He was really struggling with his fastball command at times. A lot of glove side misses, which has been kind of a trend, especially in the last 2 starts against the Yankees and the Rangers. Fortunately, this time, like I mentioned, he did not get blown up. But still, you and I last night, we were talking during the game, and he was through 4 when we were talking, and it was like, how has he not given up a hit yet? Like, what's going on? Like, he had only given up 2 hard hit balls up to that point. He finished the night with just 4 hard hit balls allowed. One of those, of course, being the home run. He gets through 6. He only had 1 hit allowed, actually. That was the home run. Again, though, considering the lack of command there was, I was pretty surprised that he got through the start as clean as he did. What did you see from him last night? And were there some positives that you took away from that?
I mean, the fact that it never got away from him is pretty good. There was some opportunity. I think at one point he threw 7 straight balls, and then like 9 out of 10 pitches were balls. I think it was in the second. And that's obviously not great, but the fact that he was able to kind of manage that, work around that is certainly good. And obviously, Miami helped him out a little bit, expanding the zone at times when they probably shouldn't have, but you have to earn the swings outside of the zone. You have to be around the zone enough. You have to have good enough stuff where they have to honor that, and they're willing to chase a little bit. So, you give Miller some credit, but this is why it's important not to box score scout, particularly starting pitchers, because you watched the game last night. Miller wasn't very good. He was fine, but he wasn't very good. It wasn't like the start against Oakland or the start against Atlanta, or where he just dominated, and you're just like, wow, like this could be. It was fairly pedestrian stuff. The fastball velo was actually down. We saw a lot of 93s. Now I don't know if that was fatigue or if that was just him, trying to throw strikes, so he was taking a little bit off of it. I don't know, but he did throw 89 pitches. There was no reports of anything after the game, so it seems like maybe Miller was just kind of trying to take a little bit off for better command of the pitch. But we'll see. I mean, he still averaged 94.6. His yearly average is 95, but we saw a lot of 92, 93s last night, so that was a little something that was weird. We saw the arms or the glove side misses quite a bit. But I do think we saw a pretty good and consistent slider. It didn't generate any whiffs on the pitch, but they didn't hit a ball hard against the slider. Average exit velo on the slider last night was 72.8. So just not a ton of hard contact at all, but particularly against the slider. And he was able to use it at the bottom of the zone to kind of set up the fastball. So overall, it was a solid night for Miller. I mean, I think, you don't want to fall in love with the box score too much, but at the end of the day, 6 scoreless innings against one of the hottest teams in baseball. You kept a rise off the bases. You kept Soler, in the ballpark. And you kept De La Cruz off the bases too. And those 3 guys right now are carrying that offense, and Miller handled them just fine. So again, you don't want to be too critical, because at the end of the day, he held a pretty good lineup to, no runs and 1 run and 1 hit over 6 innings. But there's still definitely some things to clean up there. There are some minor things to keep an eye on in his next start, but overall, a pretty solid day for Bryce Miller.
Yeah, he was able to generate a lot of weak and middling contact, so good on him on that front. But yeah, there are certainly still some concerning signs that I see here, especially last night. Didn't really get anything out of his secondaries. He didn't really throw his secondaries that much. He threw his slider 20 times according to Baseball Savant. After that, though, 3 sweepers, 1 changeup, and on the slider, he only generated 6 swings on those 20 sliders and only got 4 called strikes on there, and didn't generate a single whiff. All 12 of his whiffs came on the fastball.
I mean, yeah, but it's 12 strikes out of 20 sliders. So that's an important note. And 4 called strikes
Right, the
on
fouls.
the slider.
Fouls, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I thought the slider was pretty good last night. It's interesting. He said he threw a lot of cutters. So I don't know if, StatCast is differentiating the sweeper from the cutter or the slider from the cutter yet, but it was pretty firm. It was, topped out at 88 on the slider. That's about what the cutter should be. So
Actually,
we'll see.
no. Isn't it 6 strikes on 20 pitches?
He's 6 strikes, 4 called strikes, 6 swings.
But two of the swings are fouls though. So it's 10.
Yeah.
It's 10. Yeah.
10
Okay.
out of 20. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. I was looking at the numbers and I was like, I feel like I'm missing something.
No, I counted the foul. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, either way,
sorry to get
fine.
derailed there, but yeah.
No, he was around the zone with the slider though. Not too many bad misses. Everything kind of at the knees or lower. Like the slider was fine last night. And yeah, Miller right now, he's just not really a strikeout guy. Like it's fine. He doesn't need to get whiffs. Right. Like we see in a lot of his starts, there were a ton of foul balls last night. And that's actually a good sign. It means that, the hitter isn't picking up the fastball as well. If they're fouling it off a bunch, those are pretty harmless. So Miller was fine. But obviously the real story is the offense, and I'm sure we're about to get into that. But overall, like Miller, I would give him like a 55. Like I don't think he was dominating, but he was okay. He was okay.
Yeah, certainly not his best start, but a significant improvement
Yes.
from the last 2. And
Absolutely.
so got to feel good about that. Hopefully this is at the very least a good confidence boost for him heading into his next start, which is going to be against Chicago. So on the weekend, Sunday, Saturday, somewhere in there.
Sunday, I think.
Sunday. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. That's a lineup. Obviously, the White Sox have really struggled this year, but that's a lineup that certainly has some talent, some guys that can do some damage against Miller. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, good stuff from Miller overall, and great stuff from the offense, which is starting to heat up a bit, especially their top guys like Eugenio Suarez and Ty France. We're going to be talking about them in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. So forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for bringing us your first listen. We're talking about the Mariners' 8-1 win last night over the Miami Marlins. You can catch game 2 of this 3-game series on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app tonight. So this offense, 8 runs last night, put one in the air for the Mariners offense because they were smoking the ball, as evidenced by the distances on Eugenio Suarez and Ty France's home runs. I know you like that one. Yeah. 840 combined feet between those 2 home runs. You can do the math. Also, Stompin' Tom Murphy came through with a home run late in this one as well. So they were crushing the baseball. Julio with an RBI, Teo with an RBI double, Gino with what the hell was Brian De La Cruz doing in the first inning? I want to talk about Gino though, because he had a couple hard hit balls. He has 7 hard hit balls over his last 4 games. And obviously he had the home run. One of the other hard hit ball that he had was the one to De La Cruz, which he dropped. And then he also got on base again with a single. So he finishes the day, 2 for 4. It's starting to look like he's turning the corner, right?
Yeah. We started to see it on, what was that, Saturday night against the Angels. 3 hard hit balls, went 0 for 4. Like 300-mile-per-hour line drives right at people. And then, he continued it, had a pretty good game Sunday. Might have been Friday he had that game. But yeah, Gino's been on a little bit of a tear. Obviously, you need to see it a few more times through before we start to, say that he's made the adjustment and all that stuff. But it certainly is a step in the right direction. He looks better. The home run yesterday was to right center field. That's a great sign. He's still. You really want Gino to go on a run here this next week or so where he puts up like 3-4 home runs in a week. And that's when you can kind of feel like, hey, Gino's back. But he is hitting the ball a lot harder. His at-bats just look better in general over the last few days, not striking out as much. He's always going to strike out. That's always going to be part of it, even when he's going well. But you just don't want the bad strikeouts. You don't want the bad at-bats. And Gino's stringing together a lot of high-quality at-bats, over the last 4 or 5 days. Which is great because, Ty France and Teoscar are both on a tear right now as well. So you kind of get those three going. JP been pretty consistent all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Julio starting to get going again. Had the hit, had a walk, got robbed of a second walk in his first at bat. Terrible strike zone last night, by the way. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah,
when you have those 5 that are going pretty good, it takes a lot of pressure off of 6, 7, 8, 9. And last night, the Mariners didn't use Jared Kelenic. They didn't need him to score 8 runs. They didn't need Cal Raleigh to score 8 runs. And that's obviously that's a good sign because for long portions of the season, those 2 guys have had to carry you. But now 1 through 5 is getting the job done. We'll see how the lineup looks tonight against Cabrera. He's a tough pitcher with really good stuff, in particular, a great changeup. The Mariners probably shouldn't use Kelenic tonight. They probably shouldn't use Raleigh again tonight. Just because the changeup is that good. Cabrera is a reverse splits guy. We're talking, 100 points better in batting average against right-handers. Yeah. Same with on base, and it's like 200 points higher in slug. Like right-handers are much better bet against Cabrera. So we'll see how the Mariners want to manage that. But 1 through 5 from last night should pretty much be the same today, because 1 through 5 last night they all had 2 hard hit balls apiece. They all reached base at least twice. And obviously, there was damage done with the home runs by Gino and Ty France. So,
yeah.
And, kind of I don't want to say it's forgotten because I'm sure people noticed, but just 6 strikeouts last night for the Mariners, which anything under 10 is pretty darn good for anybody, but especially the Seattle Mariners. And they were able to do that against some pretty good pitching. Like Luzardo is not a pushover. Not having an incredible year, but he's a pretty good pitcher who strikes a lot of guys out, and the Mariners just had a great game plan against him. So overall, very encouraging by what we've seen from the Mariners really since the first game against San Diego, the Musgrove start. And they're taking walks. They're not striking out as much. They're working deep counts. They're hitting the ball hard. They're starting to hit the ball out of the ballpark. The offense is on a nice little roll right now, which is perfect. Now, the key is, can they do it for more than 5 games? Like, can they do it for more than a week? But the offense certainly is getting rolling right now. And if the pitching can kind of turn the corner and get back to what it was, this is a team that's capable of going on a run, especially the top 5 guys in your lineup are going to look like this for an extended period of time.
Yeah, great approach, great game plan, great execution against Luzardo, grinding him down and then taking advantage of the mistakes, right? You mentioned the strike zone earlier. This game could have easily been 3-0 Mariners coming out of the first inning. Julio took a called strike 3, which could have easily been ball 4, but alas. You also mentioned JP Crawford, who led this game off with a double down the line. We're trying to send him to the All-Star game. Hashtag JP for ASG. Send us your ballot with JP Crawford getting voted into the All-Star game, and you will enter for a chance to win a signed Luis Castillo card. You can send your ballot to us via email at lockedonmariners@gmail.com or on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. Anything else you want to note on this offense before we move forward?
No, just that it's, I saw the comments yesterday. It's only 1 game. Calm down. It's not. It hasn't only been 1 game.
Sure.
It's been probably about 5 now. 4 out of the last 5, at least. Again, they did it against Musgrove. They only scored 4. Okay, fine. They did it against Ohtani. They only scored 4. Right? They did it against Sandoval. They scored 5. They did it against. They did it again against Canning. They only scored 4. They were 1 hit away from being just like 7, 8, 9 runs again. That's the margin of error. And then they did it again last night against Luzardo, and they scored 8. If the Mariners scored 4 runs every single night, you're going to win a lot of ball games.
Yeah,
So
especially with this pitching staff, what this
Right.
pitching staff can be. Yeah.
Right. If you're scoring 4 runs every single night, and then like every third or fourth night you're putting up 6, 7, 8, you're going to win a ton of baseball games. And that's all this offense needs to be. Just be consistent. And again, they're doing it against not terrible pitching. Luzardo is not bad. Sandoval is not bad. We know how good Musgrove is. We know how good Ohtani is. These are not awful. Even Canning is not bad. He's a major league quality starter. They're not doing this against the Oakland A's, who, by the way, have won 6 in a row. They're doing this
Beat
against
the Rays last night.
They're doing this against legitimate starting pitching. And if they can just continue to do that, I don't know if it's enough to give them a 9-10 game win streak or anything like that, but it is going to be enough to win series, limit damage, go on the road against these tough teams like the New York-Baltimore trip, and finding a way to split those games or maybe even win both of those series. If the offense puts up 4 or 5 every single night, they're going to do that type of thing. So this is a good sign. It doesn't mean that, they're back. Like we're back. They're going on.
No, we're so back. We're so back.
Yeah. It just means that the offense is in the last 5 days looks so much different and so much better than the previous 55 games that it's worth noting. And it's worth, kind of getting cautiously excited about, because we've seen what this offense can do. We saw it the second half of last year. When they execute the game plan, they are very capable of putting up 4, 5, 6 runs every single night and even beating around some pretty good pitchers. They did it at the end of last year. They're doing it right now. Can they continue to do it for a big enough stretch of time to get back into this thing? We're about to find out.
You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Marlins game 2 tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. Hey, congratulations to Ty Adcock on making his major league debut last night. He looked good. I thought he looked good.
He looked like a middle reliever, which is fine. Like,
sure,
first 3 guys knocked the crud out of the ball. Yeah. All over 100 miles an hour, just right at people. 3 of the first 4. But the second inning, lots of soft contact. Like, he just looks like a middle guy to me, which is fine.
Sure,
that's all you need him to be. He's 95 to 97, can touch 99. I thought the slider was actually pretty good. It was kind of more of a 12-6, like it looked like a curveball almost at times, like a short curveball. But I think he's going to generate some whiffs as time goes on. But kind of looks like Justin Topa a little bit to me, minus the arm angle. Which is totally fine. That is a high quality middle reliever. So, and his ability to go 2 was nice, just because you don't want to. If you don't have to burn another arm in a 7-run game, don't burn another arm in a 7-run game. No. And then, Spire came in and he only had to throw 9 pitches to get out of the 9th. Yeah. So, I thought Ty looked pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah. No.
By the way, 2 ties on the team. I'm levitating right now.
Yeah, neither one of them as good as Colby Rasmus, but okay.
What a pull. All right. Eduardo Rodriguez. He is the target of our trade a day today. This is very aggressive because arguably he might be the best pitcher available at this year's deadline. He is hurt right now. He is on the 15-day IL with a finger issue. We'll see how long that keeps him out. But presumably he should be healthy before the deadline comes and goes. And he's someone that certainly could be on the move here from Detroit to somewhere else. He had a great start to the year. He's obviously making a bit of money, still has a couple of years left of club control on his deal. No? Am I wrong on that?
This is part of what makes him so much fun and why I wanted to talk about him.
Okay.
He has an opt-out.
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
You're
after
right.
this year. He can opt out of the last, I think it's 5 years, 90 million, something like that. And the expectation is that he will opt out of it, mostly because he and the Tigers had issues last year. And honestly, with him pitching as well as he is, he's probably going to do better on a thin free agent market. So this is part of what makes him so interesting, is that you're probably not even going to get to use him until, late July, probably post All-Star break. The Tigers are miraculously still in it because the AL Central is a joke. So do they even want to trade him? They probably should if they think he's going to opt out, and he's almost certainly going to opt out.
Mhm.
So it might be a rental, or it might be a really expensive long-term piece. You don't know, because does Rodriguez at 5 and 90? I think that's what's left on the deal. I don't know for sure. Maybe Ty can look that up. But
It was 571. I think his AAV is just 15 and a half per.
I feel like there was another. Well, whatever. Either way.
Yeah, I'm gonna check another website.
Yeah. Either way. Or what's his overall contract? I feel like 5. Maybe I'm
He
thinking of
signed.
somebody
It
else.
was a 5-year, $77 million deal.
Oh, okay. So I was thinking of somebody else.
All right. So next year, if he does not opt out, it's $18 million. After that, it's 16 in 2025, and then 15 in 26. He's opting out. After the year that he's having, he's going to get more than 18 per.
He's going to get 20 mil a year, at least 25.
Yeah.
I mean, Taijuan Walker got 18.
I mean, it's possible he comes back from the injury and he's just terrible, and maybe that tanks the numbers a little bit for him. But
he'll just opt out, get 15 million, and then be a free agent again at 32.
Sure.
So he's going to opt out almost certainly. But there's still a shot that he doesn't. And in which case, are you willing to pay? Are you the Mariners, with the amount of starting pitching you already have? Are you willing to pay Eduardo Rodriguez? What's that come out to? 3 and 50, something like that. I don't know. You probably should be willing to, but you have a lot of pitching already.
The interesting thing here, I mean, this all comes down to how the Tigers are going to value him. Are they going to value him as a rental? Are they going to ask for a return that reflects a rental pitcher, or are they going to ask for a return that reflects a club controlled, middle of the rotation starter?
I don't think they have a choice but to trade him as a rental, to be perfectly honest, because you are going to lose him. There's just no question. If you're not going to keep Eduardo Rodriguez beyond this year. And what are the odds that not only you can make the playoffs, but that you can win a playoff series with Rodriguez? They're not great. So to me, you don't really have a choice but to trade him as a rental. And I think the market itself will dictate that price to Detroit. But because, like you said, he's probably the best, maybe the second best to Stroman, he's one of the two best pitchers that's likely to get moved at the deadline this year. So you are going to have to pay up for him. He's not going to be cheap. And he's coming off of an injury, and he might not be ready till, August. How much is 9 starts of Eduardo Rodriguez instead of Marco Gonzalez or instead of Brian Wu? How much is that worth to you?
Right.
This is part of the reason why I picked him today. It's tough because are you a better team if Eduardo Rodriguez is in your rotation? Yes. It is not debatable. Yes. If you add a healthy Eduardo Rodriguez to this rotation, are the Mariners the best rotation in the American League? Yeah, they might be. They very well could be. But again, you might only get 10 starts out of them. You're not even in great position to make the playoffs right now. Maybe in July, maybe in a month, that's different. But right now, you're not. The Tigers, they don't have to trade him. They're also kind of still in it. Rodriguez, to me, is fascinating because I think you can, would you trade Clase for 2 months of Rodriguez?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you trade Michael Arroyo? I'm saying no.
I'm
saying no because to me, then the strategy is okay, I'll just go find this year's Tyler Anderson and give up Zach DeLoach for that guy. And then I'll keep Arroyo and maybe I'll flip Arroyo for the bat that I want instead. You know what I mean? So Rodriguez is super interesting because in a vacuum, yes, he makes sense and he also doesn't. It's a fascinating discussion because he helps you. He's a good fit. He's not going to be super expensive because he is going to be valued as a rental, but he's not going to be cheap because he's very good and it's going to be a thin starting pitching market. Can you thread that needle? I don't know. And it's not like Detroit has a bunch of guys that they could tack onto this deal to make it more appealing to you, right? There's not really a bullpen arm that they're going to tack on. You'd be like, oh, well, yeah, it's only half a year or it's only 2 months of Rodriguez, but I also get, 2 years of this middle reliever that I like that has, upside for high leverage spots. Probably not going to do that. Why would the Tigers do that? So Rodriguez to me is just a really interesting guy. Ultimately, I think the Mariners would rather spend the assets on bats and then kind of just go get a back end type of guy. But there's a non-zero chance Rodriguez is a guy that they like enough to go after in free agency anyways. And if they can get him at a price that makes sense, you have to be okay with just giving up a player. The player you give up, you have to be okay with him being essentially an everyday player, knowing that you're only going to get 10 games out of Rodriguez. Who's that prospect? What is that prospect package? It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Thinking even further beyond the regular season and into the postseason, am I going to need Rodriguez for the postseason?
You'd probably throw him. I mean, what is Gilbert? Is Gilbert still doing this hopscotch between good and great?
Well, so there's obviously that. Kirby's obviously been, kind of inconsistent. Castillo's been fairly inconsistent as of late.
But obviously, you're starting Castillo in a playoff series.
You're obviously starting Castillo. Yeah. Don't.
It comes down to is between Gilbert, Rodriguez, and Kirby. Which two do you trust more?
Right. So if I'm more than fine with going, Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby for most of the postseason, how much are those 10 regular season games actually worth to me?
They're worth a lot if they help you get into the playoffs. They're not worth much if you miss the playoffs. Again, that is what makes the conversation
and how
so bizarre.
And look, this is probably going to seem like a dumb question on the surface, but how much of an sure, how much let's say that Marco is able to come back, right? How much of a better chance does Eduardo Rodriguez give me in those 10 games than Marco? How much is that upgrade actually worth? Because obviously it is an upgrade. Obviously he does give me a better chance, but how much is that actually worth?
See, and that's another point that we haven't even discussed. What about Marco? Are you getting Marco back at some point this year? We don't know. Right now they're fairly optimistic, but they were optimistic on Robbie Ray with a very similar injury, and bam, Tommy John. And if Marco has to get Tommy John, which we're not saying he will, but it's a possibility.
Yeah.
If he does, then you don't have him for next year either. Rodriguez doesn't really help with that. But now you're two starting pitchers down going into next year. So does that make the Mariners more aggressive on controllable starting pitching? If Marco comes back, are they just like, no, we don't need it? Because now we're just Woo's going to start for the next month. When he's done and Marco's back and healthy, he's the number 5. Is it really worth going out and spending assets to get a marginal upgrade over Marco Gonzalez? No. Probably better off just going and spending those assets on bats.
Yeah. We talked about this yesterday. I think, whether or not Marco is able to go, I think a pitcher that's of the Marco Gonzalez caliber would make sense for this team. Someone that's under club control for next year as well.
Starts to get a little bit pricier.
The Mike Leake idea, right?
Right, but I mean, they already said no to what's his name from Cleveland. He's basically Mike Leake, so I don't know. Do you want that guy though? Because
Zach Plesac is a very special situation though.
If you're getting another Marco, right? Like if that's the plan for next year, wouldn't you be better off just letting Woo and Hancock compete for that spot? Because those guys are at least number 5s in a year, at the very least.
But are you trading one of those guys? Are you trading
both
of those guys?
We don't know.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too. I just kind of, I don't know. I feel like maybe some insurance, some major league back into the rotation insurance might make some sense for this team.
Can't you just go and buy that in the winter for like $4 million? How much is a Marco Gonzalez going to make in free agency this year? 6 to 8 million. And isn't that guy basically Chris Flexen?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what the Mariners are going to do with their pitching. I don't. Again, a lot of it will depend on where they're at standings wise as we get closer to the deadline. A lot of it will depend on how Marcos feels as we get closer to the deadline. But Rodriguez is a guy who probably would be your number 2 right now. He's probably a little bit better than Kirby, probably a little bit better than Gilbert. But it's 2 months of that guy.
But
if
again,
that.
it's a finger issue too. I don't like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If that.
Like, yeah, I don't know. It just seems really dicey. Like
Mhm.
the only aspect that, and again, this is just such a slim chance that this happens. And if it does happen, it probably means that something's gone wrong. But the thing that really entices me here is paying rental prices for a club controlled middle of the rotation starter. Right.
Yeah, but if you're the Mariners, you have to assume that you're only buying 2 months. And if you're
Yeah.
the Tigers, you have to assume that you're only going to get rental prices.
Yeah, I'm just saying as a fan, that's what entices me. But yeah, from a purely like operational standpoint, yeah, you have to go into that, into those negotiations thinking that he's only making 10 starts for me at most.
If that. Yep.
Yeah. So it's an interesting discussion. What do you guys think about Eduardo Rodriguez? Like the
I would
Mariners should go after
say-
him, pass on him.
I would say probably not. I'm probably out. But
I think it's too complicated. I think it's
Yeah.
too much of a headache. Yeah.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I'm out. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Anything else you want to touch upon before we get out of here? All right, cool. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Marlins on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app tonight. And that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day. See you tomorrow. Peace.